Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from Group 2. In this time, we will explain about ethical governance and accountability. Before starting, let me introduce ourselves. I'm Bella Haifa as moderator and speaker. The other speakers, namely Hera Ardini NS speaker, Deni Wulandari as speaker, Milleni Fitria S speaker, and Rafifah Fauziyah as speaker. There are 5 materials that we will explain, namely, first, introduction of government, the second, leading values of good governance, third, ethical culture about important aspects, next, about accountability, and the last, about the case. Governance to direct, rule, or guide the process of steering or guiding an organization toward its goal. It involves determining the objective of the organization and directing the organization toward achieving its objective, managing the relationship between all of the various stakeholders involved in the organization, and last, capture broad range of activities are leadership, effectiveness, accountability, remuneration, and relationship with shareholders. These responsibilities are a location of ethical conflict. They require decisions to be taken within a particular context where that outcome of decision will impact individuals, society, or organization in different ways. Governance is about the incorporation of moral conditions and requirements in the management, governance, and control structures of a firm. This is the contextual condition for the long-lasting and beneficial effects of the activities of individuals within the organization.
Leading value of good governance, what constitutes an ethical administration can integrity, responsibility, and accountability be found among the leading values of good governance. The following presentation, empirical for the most part, bring to the analytical to ethical issue that we raise. Good governance has main characteristic, namely participatory, oriented, consensus, accountability, transparent, responsive, effective and efficient, and inclusive, and follow the rule of law to ensure the corruption is minimized. But in a large organization like a federal government, they are bound to the problem and failures despite best effort. Over time, the cumulative impact of such event could lead to question the integrity of government as a whole about the political and the public service level. On basis of values and ethics is critical to reduce the likelihood that there will be significant problem in the programs responded to those expectations with measure to improve the public administration with initiative that emphasize value and ethics. These measures themselves raise public expectation for the proper conduct of public business.
Okay, I will explain about ethical culture, important aspect. Trust and integrity are the cornerstones of a democratic, open society. Basically, trust is a trait of deserving confidence. But are politicians and public sector leaders trustworthy? One single factor explaining the trust does not exist. Those who are involved in politics might think more of their own welfare than the welfare of citizens. Secondly, a high level of trust in one institution tends to extend to other institutions. Thirdly, in general terms, corruption decreases trust in institutions. An ethical culture combines formal and informal elements to guide an action, including ethical leadership by executive and supervisor, reward system incorporate ethical consideration, perceived fairness, fair treatment of employees, open discussion of ethics in the organization, authority structure that emphasizes and employs accountability and responsibility to question his or her own action, and an obligation to question authority when something seems wrong. Organizational focus that communicates care for employees and the community rather than self-interest. Official policies and procedures, supporting office, supporting structure, protection code sign-off, training, etc.
Accountability. Accountability is an obligation to ensure transparency and disclosure. Usually, the concept and expectation of accountability is articulated in the Public Service Code of Conduct within a department or a ministry. First, behavior is bounded by rules and regulation. Second, civil servants are subordinate in a hierarchy and accountable to superiors. Accountability is a concept in the political science and ethics with several meanings. It often used synonymously with such concepts as responsibility, answerability, enforcement, blameworthiness, liability, and other terms associated with the expectation of account giving. As an aspect of government, it has been central to discussion related to the problems in both the public and private world. The essential factor of the Public Service Code of Conduct can be divided into the 5 categories. These categories or principles are fairness, transparency, responsibility, efficiency, and conflict of interest. These principles are the basic elements of democratic accountability in relation to the public sector decision-making and action. These issues are not only the obstacle that the public service officer face internalizing this principle, but also the challenge for a proactive management in fostering such internalization.
Thirteen includes officials at the Ministry of Social Development were charged by the fraud squad for violations related to the distribution of aid funds to flood victims. The charges include receiving money under false pretenses. They are alleged to have made out checks in the name of friends and relatives who were not victims of the flood. Documents were also seized from the ministry, and police informed Minister of Social Development, Cherry Ann Cricklow Cockburn, of the action. Police sources said that 13 were not the final tally, as other ministry officials were still on their radar. More than $81 million in flood relief checks have been distributed to citizens following the October 19 floods, which devastated parts of East and Central Trinidad. Officials at the Ministry of Social Development are now investigating how much that money went to families in need and how much of it was siphoned. Since the October flooding, more than 6,200 checks have been printed and distributed. Each household that received checks was granted either $15,000 or $20,000, depending on whether there were children at the home. Multiple checks, which were processed by commercial banks, were then flagged by the central bank as suspected fraudulent. These issues were then raised with ministry officials.
From all the explanation, we can conclude that ethics, good corporate governance, and accountability are critical factors in meeting the national obligation. That's all from us. I hope the material can be understood and useful for all of us.